Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back here. It is League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. Day 4 of the final day of group stage action. And I don't know what people did heading into week 2 of the World Championship. There was some prayers, some seances, because these days, Mark, have been absolutely insane.
I'm saying it. There's some dark magic going on behind the scenes because this is more powerful than any type of script writer, Riot or the LCS, LEC, any region has ever had before. My man, this whole weekend has been packed with everything you could look for at a World Championship. And Group D, oh boy, it's not going to disappoint us on this day.
We knew this was the closest one where anyone could get out of this group, and it absolutely lived up to the hype. There's a lot of games in this group, so we got to get through them. It kicked off with Gen G versus Mad, and pretty much immediately it was, we're hoping for Mad Lions to keep their tournament alive. They're not eliminated when they lose this game, but it's a rough first step for them, and it was exactly that rough first step for them. It was Birdall getting the start again, BDD on the Syndra, and Ruler was up 30 CS early for basically free.
And I tell you what, I don't care if you're the Mad Lions, so you could be anybody. At that point, that equation on the side of Gen G, regardless on what's the other side, that's gonna be a spell for a victory for the Gen G club. You play in that type of way. You got BDD on the Syndra. We've seen be an incredibly powerful pick at this event. The what she provides in the CC, the scaling up, everything about her has
almost
been
a 90%
fantastic.
win rate.
Very scary at this event and in the hands of BDD, piloting it well. And you said it, my man. Even if it's like a 5 CS lead, it feels like 500 CS for Ruler to be ahead. The way that he moves around, the way that he finds every opportunity to dish out damage, there was no shortage of it in this one from Gen G.
And to Mad's credit, they got back into this game with a very sneaky Baron. That's what you can do with an Azir and Gwen. It kind of got the momentum back. They ended up trading another Baron for the Infernal Soul, but it was Gen G coming away with the win. They were pretty much behind in gold until the very last fight at Baron that gets them the W to put them at 3-1, and Mad Lions dropped to 1-3. Not dead yet, again, but must-win games from here on out for the Mad Lions. Second match of the day, you had Team Liquid versus LNG, and we've seen all the criticism for Icon in some of his games, and today I'm giving more of the credit to Jensen in that counter pick matchup, LeBlanc versus Lissandra. He was getting solo kills, he was getting lots of attention in the mid lane, but Jensen looked great in this game.
Huge performance from Jensen. And look, this is, one of the things that we know about him. You can put all the criticism, ourselves included, anybody wants to give him for some time in the LCS. And yes, there are those mistakes. But you step on that international stage, Jensen has been one of the most consistent and only players to deliver for North America during his time.
It's a short list.
It's a very short list, but he absolutely finds himself on it, and he does it again with this level of performance against LNG, which to me was a very important bounce back. These early games, easy to look, just totally blow them out of the water and say it's not going to matter. It's all about what's crucial towards the end of the day. You look at this, you look at how they're playing. A lot of this is the trends on the day, on what you're going to be seeing, how you can prepare moving forward. And to see Jensen play at this level of confidence and communicated around with the rest of Team Liquid was a very good sign for Team Liquid early on the day.
And even if they were the earlier games, they feel less important. Every single game today was, he only got to the situation that it did because of how every individual game played up leading up to this point. So I know it feels like the later ones are more important, but that was not the case whatsoever. So big win for Team Liquid to move up back to 2-2 and do the same thing for LNG, putting them there. And they were right back on the Rift against Gen G in the next matchup. And this was one of the most hilarious matches of the day, Mark, because I don't know if you, me, or anyone else watching the pro scene will ever see a bigger stomp in the top lane than you had in this game. We had a Flame Horizon at 17 minutes. 17 minutes?
My man, hey, this was where it was at. This was unreal domination in that top side. You find any way of getting at advantage, Ali was finding it, getting it going.
One mistake from Birdall, level 1, kind of screwing up the wave, and then he gets zero help from Clit or anyone else on Genji. He gets dove. You see, it's the classic. You see a 4 CS and a big wave coming, and then you get dove after you've already used TP. That's over. The game's over.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where, you know what, even if I'm playing with my friends, I might say, okay, to take a 20-minute break, we'll be back. But man, this is not going to look good for anybody. Credit to sticking it out. Sure, you
Ruler almost carried the game for them still, despite all that.
My goodness, what a type of game this was, to have that advantage and to still have it end up being as close as it was.
And it took a long time for LNG to close out that game. For a 0-6, Birdall being down 100 CS, they eventually dragged it out. But yes, LNG did still hold on to win, and that's a tough mental boom to bounce back from if you are anyone on that LNG squad. But that's something that they were absolutely going to have to do later on in the day. Then we got the rematch of NA versus EU. It was one of the bigger upsets in week 1. Team Liquid taking down Mad Lions. And now, after losing to Genji, this was the must-win situation for Mad Lions. As in, lose and the tournament is over for them. And all of the EU teams, nobody makes it through to quarterfinals. But Mad Lions, they come up big. They get a massive win against TL. Huge
win against Team Liquid. And you're looking at this one, what was the difference maker? What separated it? Because you, all the way throughout the early and into that mid game, it's relatively favored towards, I would say, Team Liquid. It's very close, but a slight edge towards TL and how they're carrying through the play, what they're getting out of their composition with the Twisted Fate. Jensen, again, popping off, making it always work. But it was the tenacity from the bottom lane. Looking at my man Kaiser, the support. A huge engage from the Rakan. Catches out Santorin. Major importance from the Mad Lions getting that one. And from that point on, it was every single fight in the favor of the Mad Lions. And they find a way to keep EU alive in that critical match against Team Liquid.
Early on, first you had the 2v2 of Kaiser and Karzi, just winning straight up in the 2v2. Then you have the core JJ special. He says, my tactical. Got other things to do. Him and Santorin run amok over the entire map, getting Team Liquid back into the game. But it comes down to, you have Jensen split pushing on the TF and the rest of Team Liquid just stepping a bit too far forward in a 4v5. And you're right, Kaiser and the rest of Mad Lions absolutely pull the trigger. There's the fight in the mid lane where Santorin just steps too far forward and the momentum completely shifts into Mad's favor and they don't look back.
Yeah, and it was, as big reason why that is such a pivotal moment is because of what, how things could have played out and what you would expect from a team in that situation. A Mad Lions going, oh man, this is it. This is our run, all this pressure. They doubled down on saying, look, we just can't stall out anything. We need to take our chance, our opportunity to swing this around. And that absolutely was them going in on Santorin in that mid lane. Big difference from that point on.
And so 2-3 for Mad Lions after that matchup, and Team Liquid also falling to 2-3. And remember, at the start of the day, you heard it countless times on the cast, it was a 6%. Cloud9, they said it was 1.56% chance they get out of groups. It was a 6% chance at the start of this day that you had, for the first time in World Championship history, you could get a 4-way tiebreaker. So that's 6 times the chance of Cloud9 getting out.
Oh my God. And by this point in the day, it had gotten way over that 6%. We're hearing around 25% at this point. The way that things have played out, just need a couple more cards to fall that way, and we're getting ourselves that juicy 4-way tiebreaker.
So after the loss to Mad Lions to fall to 2-3, Mad Lions also 2-3. Team Liquid right back on the Rift for the next matchup against Gen G, who was 3-2 at the time. Again, Team Liquid 2-3. And this one, listen, a lot of the games today were tough on your heart if you're a fan of any of these regions, especially depending how big of a fan you are. But most importantly, after that Irelia performance, and Birdall, I'm going to say it again, he got screwed over by Gen G. But he was out of the lineup for this matchup. It was Rascal back into the top lane.
Yeah, and you know what? As much as you want to say kind of screwed over, this is absolutely a necessary type of change on the day to reverse your fortunes, to try and get it going, try to seal a deal.
Well, he can't bounce back mentally after a game like that.
Absolutely. There's a big time change coming through. And we see the draft once again for Team Liquid securing the power pick of Syndra for Jensen in the mid lane.
And on the opposite side, you get a fun draft out of Gen G. You have the Talia, which we thought could maybe go mid for BDD, but then you get this last pick. Yone that comes in, Yone mid, Talia jungle. Definitely a duo we have not seen at Worlds yet.
Oh, and we are scared because throughout the early game, a lot of back and forth, but still mostly in the favor of Gen G, and it's BDD getting through the laning phase on that Yone untouched. There was a couple attempts from Team Liquid to put some pressure through, but sensed out by the rest of Gen G, and BDD himself gets out of that early, that tenuous early part really, really strong. It's looking scary for Gen G, but it is time to dial up some clutch plays from your boy Jensen in the mid lane. You better believe that Syndra pick's going to come through.
Yeah, and if Ruler was disgustingly fed on the Misfortune in this game, and anytime you say Ruler disgustingly fed, Gen G's winning that game 9 times out of 10. If you watch any of the teaser videos coming into this day, obviously you have that storyline of Ruler versus Core JJ, so they had to trash talk a little bit back and forth, but you're right, the Jensen Syndra is the one to highlight. The key team fight to get Team Liquid back into this game and win the game for them is that Syndra stun on Ruler, the follow-up immediately by Tactical on the Jhin, and also, of course, Core JJ on the Rakan to win that fight, because when Ruler is that fed and has so much of your money, if he dies instantly at the start of a fight before he does anything, GG.
And that's the game breaker right there. This has been a story throughout the day. Usually it's a couple little things that either change the course of a game. It is so much these one huge plays coming through, clutch moments from big players, and that's what it is Jensen finding that pick. You talk about finding a pick, landing that stun on a Misfortune when she's got the stretch, she's got the money, she's feeling good with the damage. That is a hard thing to do, and you better believe the communication was on point from Team Liquid to layer the stuns down, make sure that MF gets popped, and from that point onwards, the team fights were always in the favor of Team Liquid. And yes, a little closer than you might like, but they find a way to keep the tiebreakers going.
So that's 2 losses in a row for Gen G to drop to 3-3. All of a sudden, Team Liquid follows them at 3-3, which means it's a year where Team Liquid will not finish 3-3 and just immediately ousted from groups. They guarantee themselves at least a tiebreaker at this point.
But the big question, again, is always going to be, is it the 3-win threshold? Is that the one? Do you need that elusive, lucky number 4 for Team Liquid to get out of groups? Time will tell. We'll get to that.
And that, of course, set up. All of a sudden, after all these games, we're one set away from the dream of the 4-way tiebreaker actually happening. It all falls to LNG versus Mad, and the Team Liquid game, the season was already on the line for Mad Lions, so they're already used to it. It was more of the same for LNG. Stakes were 3-2 LNG. If they win, boom, they're into quarterfinals. Mad Lions eliminated. It's Gen G versus Team Liquid, a tiebreaker for that second seed. And quickly, very quickly into this game, you were thinking, all right, here comes the 4-way tiebreaker, because LNG looked like they wanted it themselves. They were running it into Mad Lions.
It looked like LNG was not even considering about the fact that, oh no, we're all of a sudden going to get tiebreakers. They were trying to get Mad Lions a faster win time to avoid having to go up against them.
Maybe they thought they were already through. They did. We have to play tiebreaker? Oh.
Look, out of all the things that happened on this day and all the performances that we saw, this is the one that doesn't match up, because everything else, there was some back and forth, there was close, there were some tense moments. This one, right from the start of everyone running out from the base, it was against LNG. Pure dominance coming through from the Mad Lions. The only surprise is that it actually did end up taking about 30 or so minutes for them to close it out.
Yeah, much like the LNG Gen G match, this looked like it should have been done and dusted at 22 minutes. The Poppy pick was obviously the showstopper for this one, because when you got Poppy lined up against a Jax, Lee Sin, Irelia, that looks that looks like I don't want to queue into that as any of those 3 champions. Like, ah, man, get that out.
And you know what? To be fair, I don't blame the side of LNG and looking in the sense of, okay, that Poppy is going to be there to disengage, to not allow us to keep diving in. But we've got so many divers. We have everybody that wants to go in. Aurelia wants to go in. Lisa, Jax, how can she stop all of them? Well, Elyoya's got an answer for that, my man. He found a way. Every single time, there was never any chance to get that double dive, double engage in. Always had an answer against LNG. And the answer for this game is Mad Lion saying we get 4-way tie.
All 4 teams finished 3-3, which means for the first time in the history of the World Championship, we get a tiebreaker between all 4 teams in the group. The way those tiebreakers were set up, of course, we know that they have game time speed, so they were basically seeded 1-4 based on how quick their victories were, which means we were left with an immediate matchup of LNG versus Mad Lions. But before that, we had Team Liquid versus Gen G. The winners advance to the next round and qualify for the World Championship, where they would play in another tiebreaker against the other winner for the seeding. And it gets complicated when it's a 4-way tiebreaker. But we started things off with Gen G versus Team Liquid. And you remember how the first 3 days have gone. The LCK has been dominating everybody.
Yeah, they have. But again, what's been happening on this day? It's been all about Jensen, the big player for Team Liquid in the mid lane. And he once again gets his hands on the Syndra. But the big difference here in this one, and the worrying sign, is your boy BDD gets a little bit of a comfort power pick in himself, my man. If there's been a couple of them around the world, sure, and we've noted them, but you better believe amongst the very best, the elite of the elite Zoe squad members is BDD, and he gets his hand on that dirty portal jumper.
And you saw him do some dirty things on the Rift with that pick, but very early on it was Alphari on the Jace who got a disgusting lead. Again, it was Rascal in the lineup again for Gen G. And Alphari, he had this massive lead on Jace, and you just never really saw it translate into much throughout the game. And Team Liquid, and it seemed like they hadn't played against Zoe in a pretty long time.
It's both of those things, right? You're looking at that angle with Alphari, as you said, that advantage that gets put over, that gets on to the Jace. Everything is good. You're smashing through that tower in the top lane very early. But then the problem is, well, where does Jace go? Where does he go to farm? Where does he go to exert this lead? And the choice was to group up. And that, to me, when you're playing a Jace and someone like Alphari, I don't know what's going on, my man. This is in the same type of lane as same type of idea as a Fiora, where you should be out there pushing that advantage and something else. And we did not see that from him. And it comes back to bite Team Liquid in the behind. A lot of team fights leaning towards the way of Gen G. And as you said, BDD on the Zoe finds those dirty plays and punishes some lazy NA recalls.
Yeah, I almost feel like fourth game of the day, maybe the mental effect of all these incredibly high-stakes games was getting to Team Liquid, because absolutely some of these recalls were no good. Tactical Wing into a bush that he has no vision in that late in the game, and then flashing late when he does get caught and dying anyways. Those are micro mistakes that you can't make on the world stage, and it just feels like 4 games into a very long day. Those are the mistakes that pop up.
I think that's a really good point to bring up, especially in the light of seeing Cloud9 pull off the run that they did of Group A, and then mentioning their training staff, their health, nutrition, everything that they had gone throughout the year, preparing them to be in a state to perform at that high level when it mattered most in that tiebreaker. I think that's a good examination to look at why you could get some of these mistakes from players that obviously know better. Because look, that's an inexcusable mistake in your Clash games, let alone any type of performance at the World
Championship. You're getting kicked from your Clash team for that one.
Yeah, well, Santorin's getting kicked for that one, and you're never playing with Tactical again after he gets caught just after that, and then the W jump. Yeah, there's a lot of things going wrong at that point, but there was one thing keeping Team Liquid in the game and going well, and that is Jensen on that Syndrome. My man, he steals a Baron, keeping Team Liquid alive for just a little bit longer.
And Gen.G kind of just walked away and let him steal that. I don't know what was going on there. But yeah, Team Liquid did survive, but Gen.G eventually coming through with the win. North America so close. Team Liquid so close to their first ever top 8 finish at Worlds, but it is Gen.G becoming the 4th. That's right, 4 out of 4 for the LCK teams, advancing to quarterfinals. And normally you would think, okay, that's the end of the day. What a fun time. But we still had to keep going, because then you had Mad Lions versus LNG in the rematch for the final spot in the quarterfinals, and Mad Lions had just dummied LNG in the early game previously, but this time the dives on Ale were not working. He was pulling off these 1v2s, constantly getting trades on the Kennen top side.
He said, we need to reshuffle the deck, and they did. And instead of just normal playing cards, he slipped in an Uno card. He had that Uno reverse whenever they showed up in that top lane. That was the key for Ale, and yeah, absolutely. Totally talk about a 180 from what we had seen from Mad Lions LNG when it was Mad Lions trying to stay alive. Both teams trying to stay alive in this group now, and it was LNG getting themselves some early advantages, but the Mad Lions don't go away for just a second.
They basically limit that gold lead to 2 to 3k for the next 30 minutes until we're getting to fights around Elder Dragon, when Light is incredibly fed at this point. You know, this is the 3rd straight game for the Mad Lions that is do or die. Losing, you're eliminated from the World Championship. So these guys were absolutely the definition of clutch, not just in this game, but the entire day, especially after losing your very first game of the day. But pretty much everyone top to bottom showed up in these extended fights. This was the Mad Lions we saw in the LEC, just winning these team fights that are seemingly impossible.
The best thing about this, success for the Mad Lions is it's not about one individual player finding a big player and being everything. It's been the story of the Mad Lions all along. Is that team fight, is how they work as 5 members together, and it all came together in these crucial post 30-minute team fights. As you said, everybody finding a way to contribute and find a way that there is somebody left at the end of the day on the Mad Lions side, and they're the ones pushing through that base. It was euphoria making sure that they're staying alive at this event.
And it was close to EU disaster when Mad Lions look in control. They have the Elder, but then just as it runs out, LNG comes for a nice flank to fight them. And kudos to LNG. I think it was the right call for them to just try and outright end the game, because if this kept going on, they were going to lose. They got both Nexus turrets down and looked pretty damn close, but Mad Lions hold the door, and then you have them push them out. You have this absolutely insane Ezreal ulti from Karzi to kill 2 on their way back to the base. What an ending this game had.
I love that you bring that up, because it is something to acknowledge the courage that is on the side of LNG to realize the situation and say, look, this is it. We got to go for it. And when you look at where LNG started the year, to even think that any of this is possible for them is wild in any right. And then, of course, on the winning side for the Mad Lions, the execution, the calm under intense, immense pressure.
3 games.
In that, let alone the games. I'm talking just at the end of this one in that tiebreaker, to keep it all together, to keep the communication, because that's the one, again, we're not hearing it, but you can see it on the Rift that you can't do this without the communication on all type of aspects. Really was a fantastic execution at the end from the Mad Lions. And as you look out through the entirety of this day, what they've done, what they've worked for, a very deserved escape from the group.
They saved the hope of EU, Mad Lions and Gen.G both rounding out the top 8 of the quarterfinals. We will preview all the quarterfinal action, everything that has come. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. Thanks for hanging. Catch you on that flippity flip.